Well, it's time to give this lawnmower a little bit of TLC. After it's been in the ditch a few months ago and yanked out with a pickup truck, I think it got a little mad at me. And I figured that if I go ahead and do a complete PM on here, preventive maintenance, and a thorough cleaning, that we'll go ahead and get on good terms. And what I'm going to do is use some compressed air, or a combination of compressed air and a little whisper in there, and basically just knock off all the loose stuff. The lawnmower doesn't have to be pristine. And then I'll take off the outer shell as well as the hood and clean all up inside here. And then what I'll do is do a complete preventive maintenance on it. So I've got all the parts that came in. So we'll replace the air filter paper element and probably the pre-filter, the foam pre-filter, depending upon what kind of condition it's in. And then we'll replace the fuel filter. And then the power steering filters. That's what's in these bags. And we'll replace spark plugs with brand new spark plugs after they're properly gapped. And here's the I'm going to go ahead and change out the original John Deere HY-Gard JD20 with the this synthetic transaxle fluid for the rear transaxle. And then finally we'll go ahead and do a complete oil change and filter change for the engine as well too. And lastly, I'll have to replace the seat springs. These are actually rubber seat springs, or hard foam. And when I was looking around in this thing under the seat springs turned out to be completely gone. I was wondering why my butt was hurting after mowing the lawn, and this is the reason why. Even that one's kind of collapsed. So we'll go ahead and replace those. So to get started, let me get the outer shell and hood off here and get it cleaned up, and then we'll start draining all these fluids. Okay, now that I got the cover completely removed, you can see just how filthy dirty everything is, just coated in dirt and grime and everything else. And to minimize the chance of getting any of that stuff in the hydraulic system or the fuel tank, it's always better to start with a clean surface, so to speak. And to get that front hood off, all that you have to do is disconnect the connector for the headlights, and then you sort of tilt the hood in a certain position where you can just go right on out with it straight on. Just pull it forward and the hood comes right off. And then to get the outer shell off, you just simply unscrew these pedals, the forward and reverse pedals, which I have sitting over there. And then I have the shell sitting over here in the shade. I might just clean that with a garden hose. You've got a screw up there, screw there, and then one bolt there, and then one bolt right there, and the same thing for the other side. And that shell just comes right off. And then of course you gotta just, the height adjuster knob just pulls right off. Just a friction fit. And now I think I'm ready to go ahead and blow everything out with the compressed air and begin installing all the new components. Okay, I think I got everything just about as clean as it's going to get. Come to find out, I think the best way to clean these things is to take a pressure washer to it. There's just no way to get into all the nooks and crannies, and just blowing compressed air on everything just sends a bunch of fine particulate matter into the air and all up your nose, which is not good. But I did hit the critical parts, like the fan and the seams of these bellows, so they can operate fully now. and particularly around the transaxle filler opening there. That's got to be absolutely clean, almost like you can eat off of it. You don't want any dirt getting inside that transaxle. And got the outer shell as cleaned up as it could be with this regular garden hose. You can actually tell it's supposed to be green now. So definitely a pressure washer was the way to go for that job, which I don't happen to have. So that's going to change. That'll be the next appliance I buy. And I got this thing jacked up on jack stands now, just like you would a car, nice and safe. It's about 600 pounds, so you don't want that falling on you. And I'm all set up to drain the transaxle. So I got a drain pan under here, and you got two drain plugs. First drain plug is for the backwards and forwards drive circuit, and the next drain plug forward of the camera there is for the steering circuit. So what we'll do is we'll uncap the reservoir so we can allow for some air displacement, and just to be on the safe side, we'll leave the filter in place just so we don't draw in any contaminants. And next what we'll do is we'll take our wrench, which is a 17 millimeter, and just like draining your engine oil, we just drain the transaxle. Just unscrew it and let it drain out. It takes 6.1 quarts. And that oil doesn't look too bad. It looks kind of dark, but I bought this thing in 2003. It's got 160 hours on it. And I think it's just about time to go ahead and drain the transaxle and flush it out and put fresh new fluid in there. And the fluid I'm going with, the fluid that I had in there, was the OEM, the JD20 HY-Gard. I'm going to go ahead and convert that over to the Amsoil synthetic anti-wear hydraulic transmission fluid, see what kind of performance I get with that. But anyway, while that's draining out, I'll go ahead and finish that and unscrew the next one, and then we'll start working on some of the other areas of the project. Okay, now I got the tractor back on the ground, and I got the reservoir filled with the synthetic oil this time. This is the first oil change in this transaxle this thing has ever had, and the owner's manual actually recommends, or doesn't recommend changing the transaxle oil at all for the life of the machine, which I don't really like doing that. I definitely want to have that thing changed and put some fresh fluid in there. It's actually pretty old. And in doing so, it actually gets air into the system, and there's a way to bleed all that air off that I'm going to have to do. So basically what I have now is an initial fill of 4 quarts, and the capacity is 6.1 quarts. And to do the bleed procedure involves running the engine and then leaving the transaxle into the transport position, so there's actually no drive, and then depressing the reverse pedals and forward pedals alternately to work the fluid all into the various chambers and hydraulic motors and pistons and things like that, as well as turning the wheel back and forth. Just like that. Kind of like, just very analogous to bleeding the power steering system in a car, if you guys are involved in draining that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that procedure. Once I get the spark plugs checked and tested. And there's a slight problem in that the dealer gave me the wrong power steering filters, actually. There's a vacuum line right there from the engine that applies vacuum to these bellows, one on each side, and it sucks in fresh air through these filters on the very end. And these are supposed to be white, and they're just black. and there's another filter on that side. I don't know if you can see, but there's two of those things. So I can't do those today. I can't show you how it's done because I don't have the part. But basically, you just twist this thing off and pull it. It's just a vacuum fitting in there, and this is like a ceramic type of filter. And so the engine doesn't get too hot. Before I do the bleeding procedure, I'm gonna go ahead and change the fuel filter, because that's the original fuel filter, and take out these spark plugs, check the gap, check to see how dirty they are, and probably go ahead and replace them. And then and I'll also do the same with the air filter, check the condition of that and replace that. Once I get that all put together, I'll be able to run the engine, do the bleeding procedure, and that'll allow the engine to get nice and hot to do the last part of the PM, which would be changing the oil and changing the filter. And I'll clean that all up before I drain it. And then the oil drain is actually right here on that side, which I'll clean up as well. So let me get started with all that, and I'll be right back. Okay, now I got the new fuel filter on, and that's actually pretty straightforward. You just take your pliers, squeeze these clamps down and move them up out of the way, and give the hose a little bit of a twist, and it just pulls right off. And one thing you want to make sure of is that you get the that pedal's in the way, but it flows in one direction, so you want to make sure that your arrow is pointing in the right direction. And my personal preference is to mount the filter with a part number sticking out, so when you go to replace it again, you can look it up. Save yourself some time. And so now it's time to get on with the spark plugs. And it's always a good idea before you start to remove them, particularly since this is the first time these plugs have ever been changed. This lawnmower was purchased in 2003, so it's got 9 years on the plugs. So you want to take your compressed air and just go all around inside where the mounting is and make sure that it's all nice and clean in there, so you don't knock any crud into that cylinder and score the cylinder walls. And we'll start on the other side. Show you another tip that I just recently discovered. These boots are kind of hard to get off, and part of the reason is you don't have any access down inside that hole right there to get your fingers in there, and plus you have a very short cable, so you don't really have a lot to work with. So a good tip to get those loose is to take you a pair of long needle nose pliers and kind of work them up in there like that at an angle. Get as close to the head as you can. Apply light pressure, because you don't want to have the pliers move against the rubber boot and split it. And just give it a couple of twists to break that loose. And when you do that, these guys will come off pretty easily. And you can just kind of store that out of the way like that. And now you have access to your spark plugs. So I went ahead and busted that loose already with a spark plug socket with an extension. And let's see what we got here for the first plug. Just go ahead and take that out. Sounds really dry in there. I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, see what we got here. Get out here in the light. And reading that plug, this plug looks like it's in excellent condition. I don't see any oil deposits whatsoever. You want to look for a shiny or a sheen on that plug for oil deposits to see if you're burning any oil. And you want to look for buildup on the electrode, carbon buildup. That'll indicate your fuel mixture. And you also want to make sure that the electrode is not blistered, so you got the right heat range. These plugs are actually fit for service again, or at least this one is. Looks like it was a champion. Never had these plugs out before. Got some corrosion on there. You can see how long it's been in there. Here's the original part number. So we'll put that one down into our box there with the new plugs. And now I'll go to the other side, see what's going on over here. Same thing, it's in really good condition, not a lot of carbon buildup, no sheen or anything like that, not burning any oil. So these are good. Another thing you want to do, put that down for a second, is check the gap. And I just use this tool here. It's very simple. It's basically an inclined plane, and the specification calls for a gap of 0.030. And I don't know if I can do this with one hand, but see what we got going on. We don't have hardly any gap growth. That's still running right around 0.030. You kind of do it like this, and if you got your gap right, you got just a little bit of friction there. It should just be a little tough to pull that back out. If the gap is too short, you can kind of twist this tool back and forth to spread out the electrode a little bit, and until you get the right specification. So that's how this little tool works. You can see that inclined plane getting thicker and thicker as you go up with the measurement. So even though these plugs are in really good shape and I can put them back in the motor and not have any problem at all, I'm just going to go ahead and replace them with the new plugs. These plugs were factory gapped at 0.035, which is just a little bit too wide. So I went ahead and gapped them to 0.030, and I prepped them with the anti-seize lubricant. And it looks like the factory did not do that on these plugs. They weren't hard to get out, but I always like to use some anti-seize. You just put them on the thread like that. It doesn't take a whole lot. Kind of a silver looking compound, same kind of compound you use on the O2 sensors. And I made sure the gap is exactly 0.030. So we'll just go ahead and feed that into the hole. And you always want to start these things by hand. You never want to start these with a wrench. This has aluminum heads, just like a car engine has. And you don't want to cross thread it. That would be a very expensive mistake. Go ahead and use the tool to run it on down. So it's just making contact with the head right there. And to tighten it, what you're actually doing is you're compressing this compression washer right there, which doesn't take a whole lot of force to compress. Probably about maybe 10 or 15 foot-pounds is all you need. So there's really no reason to zonk down on that thing. You could strip the threads out in the head very easily doing that. Plus you'll never get the plug back out again. So we'll just run them in by hand. Threads feel nice and smooth. And I'll go ahead and put a wrench on that, torque it down, connect the wires together, and then I'll move on to the air filter. Okay, I got the plugs all torqued down, and one thing I forgot to mention is you want to take some silicone dielectric compound and a Q-tip and just kind of work that all up inside that insulator, just like you do on cars, so that the spark plug boot is much easier to get off next time and you won't have any danger of damaging it next time. Just kind of spread it around a little bit like that, give her a push, and listen for a snap. There it goes. So that one's nice and secure. Then we'll come over here, same drill for this side. Kind of twist it to work that lubricant in there. And there's the snap. So now we're done changing our spark plugs. And next what we can do is we can get to this air filter. And the air filter box just has these two clips. Kind of pop off like that. And let's see what we got. Yeah, actually that's not too dirty. But I think I'll just go ahead and replace it anyway. Yeah, actually the pre-filter does look rather dirty. So we'll just slide him off. Feels kind of brittle as well too, so maybe what I'll do is just blow this out with some compressed air, kind of keep it as a spare. Set that aside. Oh, we got some stuff on the filter already, so it looks like the pre-filter was getting pretty dirty. So we'll just go ahead and take out the paper element. This is a really good design. They didn't want any dirt getting into that motor. Take off that plate. Put that on something relatively clean. There's your PCV. And the carburetor. There's the choke, butterfly valve. Right in there. And this just comes off like a regular automotive air filter. See how dirty this is? Yeah, it is dirty. Well, it is 9 years old. Yeah, no problem. That's what we got this new filter for. Looks like, I usually like to clean the housing, but it's actually pretty darn clean. And just like the fuel filter, I like to put these in here with the part number facing outward, just to make it easier in the future. And then we'll just grab our plate, stick that back in like that. And then run down this little wing nut, just so it's good and snug. That's just all there is to it. I'm going to go ahead and fit the pre-filter over there, just insulation's reverse of removal. And then put the outer shell back on. And then I'll be ready to run the engine to bleed the transaxle and make sure that I got the right fluid level. And then that'll warm the oil up to do the oil change. Well, I want to make this video as accurate as possible, and a tip I just figured out is it's a lot easier to put the pre-filter on first, because compared to the old one, this one's a lot stiffer. I mean, it's not as elastic as the old one, it's not as stretched out, so it's kind of hard to get it on there with the paper element already in place. So you want to put it on there where it's flush with the seal of the paper element, part number facing out. And I did clean ended up cleaning up the housing real good, so that's all looking nice. And just put that in, just like that. I also cleaned up this piece here. And then our wing nut again. There. That went on a lot smoother. Now I'm ready to put the cap back on and continue on. Well, everything's back together now, so I can go ahead and start it for the first time since the plug change, and go ahead and start bleeding the transaxle. And I've also replaced the deteriorated foam rubber springs under the seat, and they were completely shot. In fact, the one on the right side disintegrated, and this one's not too far behind, just totally gone. And there's a bit of a problem with that. With the one on this side, when it disintegrated, I seem to have lost the reinforcement that goes on the top. This is for the left hand side. So for now I'm going to go ahead and leave this one off so the height is even, and order another component. I don't have a Chinaman's chance of finding this one. It probably fell off years ago maybe, and then I subsequently ran over it and split it into a million pieces, so not even worth looking for. So this is the safety switch, so in case you don't sit down on the seat, the engine stalls if the transaxle is in gear or the PTO is engaged. And I've got that bypassed, so I can go ahead and run this thing and while monitoring the fluid level. So let's get this out of the way, and we'll go ahead and crank her over, see if she runs. So we'll do a full choke and low throttle and crank her. Kind of running at a low speed just to make it a little bit easier for you guys to hear if I have anything to say. And now we'll go ahead and engage the transmission. You can hear that thing spinning, or see it spinning hopefully, so we know it's running. And our level's gone down just a little bit. We have our lever in a forward position, which is for pushing, so there's no load on it. And now we just want to work these pistons back and forth for forward and reverse. You can hear the engine load down just a little bit, even though it's not going anywhere. Loading down because it's pumping all that oil through. Let's check our level now. That doesn't look too bad. So we'll give it one more try. This time we'll turn the wheel. It's like you're bleeding a power steering system in a car after you flush it out or you change out the pump or change the gear, or replace the hose. Just want to get all that air out of there. Air doesn't lubricate. Do one more cycle. Go forward. And now we'll turn the wheel all the way to the stop. And now we'll go backward for the same thing. And we'll check our level, and it's actually still a little bit higher than full, but that's okay. This is just a container. The transaxle is designed to be filled all the way to the top, so even if it's all the way up there, it's still okay. You just don't want it to be below that line. So it holds 6.1 quarts, and I put 4 in it. I got 2 left right there, so somewhere along the way there was still 2 quarts left in there. There's always a little bit left in the oil pan or transmission pan, but I didn't think there'd be that much left in it, but I think it was still good to change it to the synthetic kind. That fluid was 9 years old. Now that the engine's running real good, I'll go ahead and throttle it up, warm up the oil, shut her down, and I'll go ahead and change it. Okay, to get the oil to drain, you just take yourself a suitable wrench like this crescent wrench, and just loosen the nut. I like to clean it up first when I do, and I've already loosened it. So we'll go ahead and start the drain process. Just that easy. And one thing I like to do is I like to jack it up on one side so that I get myself a really good drain. Jack it up on the side opposite of the drain plug. You'd be surprised how much extra oil will come out. So let me let that finish draining, and we'll move on to the filter. Okay, now time for the oil filter. I've already busted it loose, and a good tip for you guys. But due to the cramped spaces you have between the filter and the shroud that you sit on, the filter strap is pretty much the only way to go. Strap wrench is what they call it. And what you want to do is you want to get that strap run all the way up to where the seam is, or the crimp is, to the oil filter, because that's the strongest part of the oil filter. If you're too far back or in the middle, and that filter is on there tight like this one was, you'll just end up distorting the filter can and just making the situation worse. And then you also want to have a little can down there. That's just a little cat food or TV dinner tray or whatever, just to catch the little bit of oil that's going to come out of there, because that filter's pointing down at an angle. And I don't know if I can... You just want to kind of work it like that. Take your time with it. And it's busted loose. So we can go ahead and get this off of here. Set that aside. And you just want to unscrew. It's kind of hot, so you want to kind of stop and wait for the oil to finish draining. Just like that, and just now it's finished draining. And go ahead and unscrew it. Take it out. Turn it up vertically as quick as you can, Look on the inside, there's just no sludge, so we're in good shape there. And oil filter adapter looks very, very clean. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the excess oil and go on with the new filter. Okay, now the new filter is in, and got the hood on as well too. And just like an automotive spin-on filter, you want to lubricate the O-ring with some fresh engine oil before you put it on. And just give it like 1.5 turns after it contacts the base of the adapter there. And I was able to pre-charge that with a little bit of oil, even though it's in the inverted position. And I got the engine filled up with oil. And so we'll go ahead and crank it over and see how long it takes that oil light to go out. And once we'll crank it over, or once it runs for a little bit, we'll go ahead and recheck the oil and top it off as needed. Not too bad. Just let it sit here in idle for a little bit, then I'll shut it back down and recheck the oil. And last but not least, I'll go ahead and grease the spindles. There's 3 of those, and you just attach to these Zerk fittings. There's one there, one back there, and one right there. And so once I finish doing that, that'll complete the PM of this thing. I still need to order some reinforcements for the springs for the seat. And by the way, don't forget to hook back up your safety switch, because when you run this into a ditch again, you'll be safe because the engine will shut off. And I need to order 2 of those correct steering filters and go ahead and replace those. And once I do, this thing will be completely finished. So hopefully this thing will stop acting pissy, because I ran into a ditch, and be on better terms and serve me for another 9 years. Hope this video helps you guys. If you have an SST18 or really pretty much any lawnmower, they're basically all the same. So hopefully some of these tips and tricks will help you out.